All right, welcome back to case study number 30 of this series, so brilliantly titled Kirk's 40 Case Study Closings. I'm your host, Ryan Kirk, and these case studies range from vacant lots to custom luxury homes and total $2,042,081.71 in profits and equity without having to personally go see the property on some. And with no cash, no credit of my own, it varies, and I'll explain. And I do it all with Flip Logic and 1-888 cash offer. Now let's get into number 30 of the 40 case studies. 332 A Street in Coronado, California. That's that island, or more like a peninsula, jetting out into the San Diego Bay. Very nice place. This house that you see there, old 1920s, 1930s, home. Very small. I want to say it was maybe it was a 2-bed, 2-bath. Just over 1,000 square feet. In the back, there was a garage with like a carriage house or a office or what have you above the garage, and that had burned down some time ago. So this place needed to be renovated inside, and then you needed to add on square footage to that, and then also build the garage and do the add-on top of the garage. So that's what was going on here. This the type, it was an MLS property on the MLS, and it was a short sale. The lead originated from an agent, but you could also duplicate the same lead origination by, you could go to Flip Logic, instant seller leads, and then you could go to for sale by agent, put in short sale, and that's how you could have found this property. Seller's motivation. They just wanted speed, certainty, and convenience. They just wanted to unload this, short sale. They're not going to make any money. The ARV on this came out to 1.3. The repairs were going to be $35 a square foot on the existing and $200 a square foot on the new construction. So this is going through Coastal Commission. So you're going to have more time, more expense on the square footage that you're adding. And also in that square footage was going to be a master suite and bath. So that's why that was budgeted at $200 a square foot. Rule of thumb is about $100 a square foot for add-ons. And you'll even notice that can go up to 125, 150, maybe even 200. It can vary. Rule of thumb is about $100 a square foot, but again, when you start getting into this, coastal, you run into a lot more red tape and a lot more costs and fees. So we put $200 a square foot as a budget. We got the seller to agree upon a price that was actually much better than $815. I think it was closer to $750. However, the short sale approval came in at $815, so that boosted our price up to $815, and we were only able to get an investor to pay $830 for it. And if you want to reverse engineer the numbers on this, you could take $830, which is what our investor paid, and I'm waiting for my calculator. So you could take $830 plus the repair costs of $197 equals $1,027,000, and you could divide that into the ARV of 1.3, and that will tell you that we were able to sell this to the investor at 79% of the ARV minus repairs. So that's an important number to know. You'll notice that number will shift and swing depending on the ARV. Higher ARVs, you can typically sell these at higher percentages of the ARV minus repairs. Like for instance, in this case, 79%. This would have been much closer to 83%, somewhere around there if this would have just been a straight renovation. As more work is involved and more time, for instance, like on an add-on, investors, they typically want instead of like in this case, it's common in ARVs like in the $300,000 to $1 million price range. Investors want a 10% ROI. It typically comes out to about 83% of the ARV minus repairs, and that's something that you typically see, or I typically see. So for this, with the add-on, I believe it was closer to 15% ROI is typically what investors like to see, even up to 20%. So obviously, as the ROI goes up, that percentage of the ARV minus repairs comes down. So in this case, instead of like normally like 83%, 10% ROI on a straight reno, this is an add-on. So we probably sold it, I think, somewhere closer to, if you plug this into a spreadsheet, probably closer to a 15% ROI. And that took it down to a 79% of the ARV minus repairs. So as you get into lower ARV type markets, $100,000 ARV ranges, below that, maybe up to around $200,000. That percentage of the ARV minus repairs that an investor is going to want to buy it at is going to be around 70%. Could get up to 75%. You really just, our Flip Logic is already preset with algorithms that will generate just from the ARV and the repair costs being inputted. It will generate those numbers, the max rehab price that you should sell it to an investor for, your initial offer and your max offer. So those are already preset, but it's good to know because you can always shift those numbers, down or up depending on what kind of a ROI that you want to try to hit as far as what you want to sell it for, what kind of an ROI, or maybe what kind of a net profit. For instance, maybe in your market, you'll meet investors or no investors where, they're happy if they can get a $20,000 net profit. So you can adjust the numbers to set it to where your exit price creates a $20,000 net profit, and then where you can make your offer, initially and max below that. In my market, it's less net profit driven; it's more ROI driven. It's 10% ROI. You start getting into add-ons, maybe 15% ROI, maybe even up to 20% ROI. It just kind of depends on how big of a purchase price and how big of an add-on, how much the cost is going to be. So you just have to get an idea, and that's what you can learn here, and then further with me on in the Inner Circle on the Dealmaker webinars as we break down different scenarios. So that's it in a nutshell. We did, since this was a short sale, we put it under contract, and we did the addendum adding a co-buyer. So that's how we did this, to save on closing costs and save on financing, especially on a $815,000 purchase price. That would have ate up our whole profit. So instead of having to say no to the deal, did an addendum. Number one, investor, whatever their entity is, to be added as a co-buyer. Number two, us and the investor are vesting to be, our entity and the investor's entity as tenants in common. And then we'll typically put a parentheses, 5% for us, 95% for them. And then we close with the agreement and an assignment agreement in place that we're going to sign a quitclaim deed, notarize it, put it in a third-party escrow. He's going to put an assignment fee or wire $15,000 in there, and then as soon as that third-party escrow receives recording confirmation from our escrow that title's recorded, it's closed, and that we're both on title, now they have the instruction to execute settlement, which is to send that quitclaim deed out for recording to release us from title, or you, in other words, and to wire that assignment fee over to us. And that's how you can get around these short sales and these REOs and not have to pay, double closing costs and financing fees. In this case, I don't believe we had to wire a deposit. I believe we were able to find our investor within our time frame of I always like to set our contracts with 5 business days from acceptance of when our deposit has to be due. So I guess it's about 7 calendar days for us to find our investor. Oops, let me get rid of this screen. For us to find our investor, have him walk through, get comfortable with the numbers, sign an assignment, wire his non-refundable deposit. So you can typically do that in 7 calendar days. If you can't, then you've got to wire the deposit until you do find him, to where he's going to wire that in, and then escrow will release your deposit back to you, amend the vesting from you to your investor, and then put your deposit, your assignment fee on the buyer's settlement statement. Or you're going to use a third party holding escrow in the case such as this with a short sale. That is it. And as far as having to personally go see this property, no, you would not have to personally go see this property. Why? It's vacant. Owner is not occupying it. This was a second home or rental. So you wouldn't have to be present while your investor's there, because there's no fraternizing, discussing terms that would occur between your seller and your investor. So you could do all of your underwriting from your desktop, have your investors go by there, give you the feedback, and then make any adjustments that you would need to, if any, with the seller from there. All right, that's a wrap on this one. So again, statistically, only 10% of YouTube videos are watched until the end. So if you're in that 10%, you're a hustler, persistent, determined to succeed, and I wish you much success. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to working with you.